Hey, what is prompt engineering? Well, let's learn about it. I'm going to tell you what prompt engineering is so you can confidently explain it to others. All right. What is a prompt? That's the first thing we need to know. If you look over here, we have a prompt on GPT-3. This is ChatGPT-3. We're just saying, can I have 10 product names for a pair of shoes that can fit any foot size? Now, this is, I would call like a naive prompt or a baseline prompt. And I would say most of the time this works. Like most of the prompts that you use, you will just throw away. It's a one-time task. You don't really need to use it again. It's not a big deal. And it will get pretty much what you need. Now, the problem is that it can be a little bit unreliable. Sometimes here it's going to come back with, 10 names in the numbered. Other times it might come back with bullet points. In some cases, it might just come back with a few names instead of 10. And you want to be able to make your results much more reliable when you're working with AI, particularly when you're integrating into a process or into other software. So when you're starting to scale it up, that's when you need prompt engineering. Now, prompt engineering is a set of principles and processes and tips and tricks for making those results more reliable. So if you look at this example here, we have a prompt which is a little bit more engineered compared to the previous naive baseline prompt that we had. And this is a prompt that I've developed over time in order to generate new product names, and it's much more reliable. It gets me much more useful results, and it always comes back in a consistent format. And you can see here the names are pretty cool. Universal Fit Shoes, Omni Fit Footwear, quite like that one, Perfect Fit Footwear, Adaptive Fit Shoes. And the names will be slightly different every time, but because we've instituted a formula here, we have a template, we'll be able to use this again and again and get reliable results. And we're going to go through in the rest of the course and show you what principles we're using in order to craft this type of prompt so you can make your own. Why is this important to learn? Well, the pace of AI innovation is kind of crazy. We have a number of papers published on AI doubling every month. Which is insane. So if you're spending a day a week just reading papers like I am right now, in 2 years I'm going to be spending 2 days a week just reading. Stable Diffusion is the fastest growing open source project in history. And it's actually pretty hard to see. But if you look over here, it's actually this blue line, right? It almost looks like the y-axis. And it's growing a lot faster than a lot of these other GitHub projects, which really shows the power of open source. And we have this starting to happen in text generation models as well. But the really big story that's on everyone's lips is ChatGPT usage. It got to, I think it was 1 million users in just a couple of days, which is pretty nuts. The fastest growing consumer application in history. It's now north of 100 million users, and quite a large share of the population has at least heard of it. So pretty interesting, and that's brought a lot of mainstream attention, but these things have been in the works for a long time, and people have been figuring out how to use them. So that's what I'm going to be teaching you in this course. Prompt engineering interest has gone crazy. There's a lot going on here. It's really spiked just because this is in some cases people think the job of the future. I actually kind of see this less as an individual career, although there are people being called prompt engineers, but more as a skill that you need to learn to do any job. Just like you'd have to learn Microsoft Excel or PowerPoint, this is going to be baked into everything that we do. So why learn prompt engineering if that hasn't convinced you already? When you're working with AI, you sometimes get inconsistent results. Here are a few examples here. AI is still not great at doing hands, and that can be a real problem. So there are different tips and tricks for avoiding that. It hallucinates, right? So here I've asked it, who's the first to walk across the English Channel? And it says it was someone called Matthew Webb. And when I ask, is it possible to walk across the English Channel? It says, apologies, no, it's not possible. And then there's this example here on the right. I tried to do some product placement with one of my daughter's toys just to test out Dream Booth with Stable Diffusion. And it made this nightmarish image of Elsa from Frozen with no arm, putting a bag in the bin in the trash. So there are different techniques for improving the results that you get and avoiding these inconsistencies. The other thing which is really useful is just being able to use the advanced techniques with AI and get better results than other people are getting. So On the left here, we have a more advanced prompt where we're mixing styles. We have a dash of Picasso mixed with Van Gogh, showing the Golden Gate Bridge with no clouds. So that gets like a really unique artistic style that we wouldn't have gotten to otherwise. There's also the parameters that you can use when you're using tools like GPT-3 or GPT-4 through the API. There's a lot more flexibility you can get out of the model. And then I already mentioned Dream Booth. This is just my profile picture, right? Me dressed as a, I guess, futuristic knight, techno knight, whatever it is. But it's pretty remarkable that with a little bit of technical skill, you can get images like this, which it's like pretty crazy. It looks like magic to me to be able to see myself like in an AI image. The other thing that's really important is scaling your creative output. So it's one thing to play with ChatGPT and play with DALL-E or Midjourney, but the problem is you're still involved in the process, so it's unnecessarily manual. It's still a lot of copy and pasting. And what a lot of people want to do once they get good at AI and they see the potential is scale up that output. So it's not about like writing one blog post with ChatGPT and you doing that manually. It's about generating 1,000 blog posts at once and publishing them all. It's not about just creating one nice image for the website. It's about kind of scaling it up so you have a good image for every single page on the website automatically when you publish it. So I think learning how to code, learning how to use that code to programmatically interact with AI, I think that's the real prize. That's what a lot of people are moving on to. Cool. So is it the career of the future? Andrej Karpathy seems to think so. He was the head of AI at Tesla. He's also one of the co-founders of OpenAI, so really knowledgeable in the space. And it's been really interesting to me to see how hot he is on prompt engineering, even though he can train these custom models himself, right? He is talented enough to do that and has done that at large scale. He still thinks there's value in prompt engineering. And in fact, he thinks it's one of these new kind of abstractions, I guess, like a new way of programming. If you think about, this is a meme he shared, right? When we first had computers, we had to special purpose build every computer we want. So if we wanted a adding up machine, we had to build a machine that was very good at adding up, and it couldn't be programmed very easily to do anything else. But then we had general purpose computers, and it was really just a case of designing the algorithm. The computer could run any piece of code arbitrarily. And that was what, the birth of programming, right, as a discipline. But then it became all about machine learning. So in the past, 10, 20 years, the focus has shifted from not just from like, can a human code this algorithm, but can the computer learn the algorithm by feeding it the right data? So that's the sort of thing that Andrej was doing at Tesla, right? Like, feeding lots and lots of data from sensors in the car, and then eventually the car develops all the rules it needs to be able to drive itself. But the new paradigm is prompt engineering, software 3.0. So the actual algorithm has already been designed, right? This is why it's called GPT. It's a pre-trained transformer. But you need to coax it into doing what you need it to do, right? So I think this is really like a new management science. You're learning how to manage working with an AI, just like you have to learn how to manage working with other people. And in this case, it's all about communication. It's not really just learning how to code. It's more about learning how to speak and write and communicate your thoughts more effectively. And that's what Sam Altman thinks as well. Like he, if you look at interviews, he quite often says that he doesn't think we'll be doing prompt engineering in 5 years. And what he means is the type of really hacky prompt engineering you see people talking about on Twitter, where it's like, you just add this one magic word to your prompt, or use this template and you'll 10x your revenue, or whatever these guys are promising. That's all going away, because every time they update the model, then all of that stuff gets wiped out, because the model gets better at, not just, losing the intent of what the person is getting at. So when we went from ChatGPT 3.5 to GPT-4, we had to use a lot less coaxing in order to get it to follow instructions and role play. because it was trained specifically to be able to role play in GPT-4. So that's all going away, and that's the part that you probably don't need to learn. What we're focusing on in this course is really about the quality of ideas and understanding what you want, being able to communicate that properly. So, we're trying to zoom out. We're trying to make this course useful for, in general, when GPT-5, when GPT-6 comes out, when you have Midjourney version 6, version 7, you're going to be able to still use these principles that we're teaching you, and they'll be transferable across models. So even if it's not GPT-5, GPT-6 you're using, but Claude version 2 or Claude version 3, it's still going to be transferable because there's nothing worse than hacking a bunch of prompts together that are unintelligible, and it just works. So don't touch it, don't break it, and then the models update, and you need to redo all of that work. If you build your prompts based on specific principles, then that'll be a lot more transferable. Cool. So I hope you're along for the ride. I hope you're interested in prompt engineering. We're keeping this course relatively straightforward and focused because there's a lot happening in the space. We're going to keep it updated as much as possible. The principles won't change, but a lot of the other material will. And we're going to, keep bringing it back to the principles every time. So let's get into the principles. That's what's coming up next.